throughout my time working in the music industry, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different artists on both sides of the fence, meaning both on the A&R and creative side, in terms of artist development and the true sense of what A&R stood for back in the day, which was artist and repertoire. And that was something that kind of went, as time went on and as the world changed, became less and less a function of real artist development, but more what I call active research, which there were war rooms and people studying things on the internet and finding records independently, and that became the focal point of it. When I first started doing this, I grew up in Miami, where Miami was a melting pot culturally, and all different kinds of records were playing on the radio, and at any given point there could be an independent record or a record that was discovered in the clubs or in the street, and you would ultimately, they would get support from what was then the local radio stations, and then end up with records in Specs or Peaches or whatever, and you would see the records start to sell, and there were record pools, and the club DJs would support it, and it was a really organic process. So that became like a model that I kind of learned from, in the sense of, where's music discovered from? Sometimes it's not about, the actual label developing it from scratch, but independent artists or artists now being able to make their own music and release it. Well, nowhere is it now, more than ever, is it the norm as opposed to the opposite, where, due to technology and the capabilities, you can make a record on your laptop, you can shoot a video on your iPhone, and you can release it through, anything from TuneCore or whatever, and it can be distributed around the world. When I first started in the music industry, distribution was the barrier to entry, because you couldn't get records at the Tower or Warehouse or any of those places without having a major label or a solid distributor, plus you had to create physical goods. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. I think the opportunity with AVENUEAR is pretty mind-boggling, because if you can put together a panel of, seasoned, smart, creative executives to kind of be your guiding light, to give you input and feedback, there's a tremendous opportunity to make better records or have greater opportunity and exposure for that. And the fact is, making great music that lives on your hard drive is like operating in a vacuum. It doesn't get to see the light of day. So, the platform as it's designed is to allow people to share their music with people who can make a difference in their career. And, I was just talking to a radio promotion friend of mine who works in the dance world, and he hosts a weekly Zoom call. Probably about 30 to 50 radio DJs, remixers, some radio programmers. And one of the guys on there, an Afrojack, happened to be on the call that day, Nick. And he said, well, if you guys have anything that you think I should hear, please get it to me. And sure as shit, there was a song from a DJ, I forget where he was from, but he's not a world famous DJ or a songwriter, but Nick fell in love with the song and took it. And now it's gonna be an Afrojack record. That's the kind of magic of what can happen in these circumstances, where literal unknowns, do that. And it's there are case studies, and there are other people who will be on board the panel who can change somebody's life like that, where you go from relative obscurity to writing a hit song because somebody's discovered it and takes it and can shoot it through the stars by attaching the right person or right artist to it. And that's the magic of what I see as part of the platform's, opportunity. Because as difficult as it is to be a creative person in today's world, is also how magical it is. You have the opportunity to change your life and have people hear your music like that, right? By a press of a button, by sharing music. And the fact that you then assemble a panel of people who can actually make a huge difference in someone's life, from diverse backgrounds and whatever, you never know what people's reaction is going to be. And I can promise you now that there isn't a person who sits at a desk at a major label that isn't researching and actively looking for their next hit, right? The old adage, you never know where your next hit's going to come from. And the fact is, if you have an opportunity to create a curated or a well-tuned funnel, which this is what it sounds like, and to be able to narrowcast and get to these people, top producers, label executives, whatever, you never know what can happen. From my perspective, AVENUEAR, if you use the name, right, AR for A&R, or as I like to refer to it, active research, you're allowing people to present their music whether it be an artist or a song or a track or whatever it is, at a higher level. And, because you have a panel of quote unquote industry experts that are then listening to it, well, that scales it already in terms of qualifying it. And then at the same time, if I understand the platform correctly, that there's a public-facing front to it as well, where, I know from my own experience with my own kids, they are the best A&R research team you could ever possibly have, because they're listening to all kinds of music and studying artists and discovering things. So if you give that opportunity to other people who are music fans to be actually able to weigh in on things and share their opinion, much like they do on Hit Predictor or Rate the Music or any of these other platforms where you're asking for public response, as opposed to having to trudge through thousands of playlists to look for things, this actually kind of helps even clarifies it even further. So it kind of levels it up quite a bit. I mean, ultimately, that's what you're there for. You'll know within a reasonable amount of time, based upon what you hear, quality or otherwise, right? Whether it intrinsically has the value that you want it to, maybe not fit for you, but you can appreciate it for the quality of music, or hopefully for what it is for someone else. That can obviously opportunity for referrals or sharing of music. Yes, you would hope that a platform like this will allow people who are serious about their craft to be able to share it or narrowcast it or try and get it to the ears of somebody. That is difficult. And as a publisher, I'm not a publisher per se, but as a publisher, publishers spend endless amount of time going through their writers' songs and then pitching them to labels or to a specific artist in the hopes that they'll hear it. Well, this is not too far from that, but if there's somebody on the other end listening with intent, and there's an opportunity for them to actually do something positive with it, and you can get that kind of interactive feedback, that's huge. And listen, you again, I go back to the standpoint that you never know where you're going to hear a great record or who it's going to come from. So if you're not open-minded and not willing to listen, then you're obviously exclude yourself to a lot of things. A lot of people only believe that they can get hit songs or great records from certain people. I don't buy that. I don't think that's the case at all. There's too much talent out there in the world, and too much creative talent. So whether it's a great song or a great vocalist or a great track or a great performance on a record that has the ability to do, become more mass appeal than what a person would normally be able to do on their own. We see it all day long where artists are discovered from the street, right? No matter what it is. And it just takes somebody with ears listening. And the fact is, every day now, people can put, an inordinate amount of music up through Spotify and Apple Music and Deezer and Amazon. If they're able to gain traction and they're able to tell their story and they're like, well, I want to get discovered, what better way to do that than through a platform that's actually going to put it into the ears of people who can actually make a difference in that? And whether you're started yourself independently or you're doing it, with support, the fact is you still want to grow a bigger audience, and who better to help you than some of the people who could be on this platform to help expose you to a wider audience. From my understanding, it sounds to me like the panel, the executive team who's behind it, obviously sit and have great history as creative people. And, that alone gives them great experience and understanding and obviously can make a difference in somebody's life, right? That's kind of what they do. Plus they're tasked with working on been tasked with working on some of the bigger artists in the world. So to be able to get to them, if you're a songwriter or as an artist to get discovered or as a producer to get your music heard, that's kind of priceless. That gives you, to get any kind of critique or feedback or support, or the idea that, somebody at that level is going to listen to my music, you lose your mind. People wait a lifetime to build their credibility to the point that somebody at that level will pay attention to them. Meanwhile, this can kind of shortcut that and put you right in their ears before all that, and give them first chance to look, or an early look at what you're doing. I think the world has changed now to the point that there's a ridiculous amount of music out there and available, and people are obviously creating more music on a daily basis. than probably ever before, especially because you can do it without, you can do it in your laptop, you can do it in your bedroom, you can do it on a plane. How many people, remixers or producers I know, working on records on planes while they're traveling? So, the process of elimination, I guess you would call it, if you're saying who gets to do the listening, who makes the decision. Hard to say. I mean, at the end of the day, it's easy to separate good from bad, but good from great. And plus, music is subjective. So one man's opinion, could be completely different from someone else's. And that's what makes you want to listen, because you really do want to hear. And why is something popular? I mean, if you're talking on a pure, active research or research-based model, well, why is this record gaining traction? Why has it got intention? Why are people focused on it? I mean, not everybody appeals or listens to all genres of music, right? Some people are very narrowcast in what they do. I happen to love all kinds of music and have worked with all kinds of artists, from country to hip hop to metal to some of the biggest dance and EDM to urban to, whatever. So it can be limiting, I guess, for some people in the sense that this is what their expertise or their focus is, but for others it can be opening, because you get to open your eyes to all different things, and I think that provides a great opportunity.